There is an absolute crisis going on currently right now in the book space online. Maybe crisis is too strong a word, but this is going to be kind of an old man yells at clouds type video. So we're going to get a little hyperbolic with the language. I hope that doesn't offend you too much. But people cannot rate books accurately, at least in my opinion. I will couch my opinion a little bit thusly. So many people are giving 1-star books to books that they just kind of disliked and giving 5 stars to books that they just kind of enjoyed. To quote a modern philosopher syndrome, if every book is a 5-star book, none of them are a 5-star book. So today, we are going to go through my process of rating books. I've also gotten a few questions because people say, well, how could you give this a 3? You said you really liked it and then you gave it a 3. So we're going to kind of demystify my personal process. And I'm not saying that you need to adopt this process for rating books, but what I do hope that you come away from this video with is more of an understanding that giving a book 3 stars does not mean that you hated it. That giving a book 4 stars does not mean that it was just okay. We need to find some standard of rating so that you from the future can look back and see what you from the past thought of about a book, a piece of text, and actually have an accurate representation of those thoughts and feelings. And I do not write a ton of reviews. So the star system helps put myself back in the mindset of the person that I was when I originally read the text. It gives me a snapshot of what I actually thought. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Starting at the bottom, we're gonna go what makes a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5-star book. Let's do it. Oops, I lied. Before we get to that, we have to talk about DNFs, did not finish. Obviously, if you did not finish a book, then you do not need to rate it. I've seen a ton of these as well. If you don't finish a book, I don't think that you really have the right to rate it. Now, it's personal for everybody. If you like to rate your DNFs a 1 star so that you remind yourself, didn't really like this, but maybe I'll come back to it, that makes sense to me. But if you are DNFing a book and you're giving it 2 stars, that is madness to me, and I don't think you should be doing that. You never know. If you get through an entire book, then you can review something. But if you make it 200 pages into a 300-page book and you DNF it, those last 100 pages could have actually saved the novel, but you do not have that basis to rate. So I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, except I do because this is my channel. So if you are DNFing, do not rate it, just DNF. Move on. What makes a 1-star book for me? For me personally, a 1-star book is a book that I have finished, that I did not like, and that I do not really see how other people could like it. There is some subjectivity with reading, but usually to be a 1-star book, there has to be some objective issues with it. If it has blatant grammatical errors, bad sourcing in history texts, if the writing is not very good, it will usually end up as a 1-star book. I have a couple 1-star reviews of books that I have read so that we can kind of flesh out this category a little bit more. First and foremost, 1-star The Dark Queens. I did a full discussion of this in my March recap, so if you want a little bit more in-depth understanding of why this was a 1-star, go check that out. I will say this firmly falls into the iffy, poorly sourced history text. I was a history major in college, and I cannot get the voice of my professors out of my head when we're talking about sourcing. When I was writing papers and writing my thesis, sourcing was the #1 thing. In a lot of modern history, we've moved a little bit away from sourcing. So if you've got poor sourcing or sourcing that just feels maybe a little disingenuous, that is a fast track to a 1-star book. Another 1-star I've got on here is Burn the Boats, Toss Plan B Overboard. And it was a self-help book. It's a business book. The writing in it felt so juvenile, and the themes and just the general self-help nature of this book, I hated it. And so that is a 1-star book for me. And finally, Funny Story. I know I've done a whole video on Funny Story. Please click here if you want to see the whole thing. But again, the writing felt so juvenile, and I just couldn't believe that anyone actually enjoyed it. Now, there is moments, like I said, of subjectivity. And just because these are 1-stars for me doesn't mean they're 1-stars for you. Let's move to what makes a 2-star book. A 2-star book for me is a book that I did not like, but I can see why other people liked it. There may be moments in the text that didn't work for me. The overall plot couldn't have worked for me. I maybe didn't like some of the characters, didn't like some of the writing, but I see enough to say, okay, I understand why someone maybe with a different perspective or that likes different themes may have enjoyed this book. A couple 2 stars that I think are kind of shocking. First and foremost, The Poppy War, which is a huge darling in the fantasy space, did not work for me at all. It felt like it mined too much of actual history instead of just coming out and saying that it was a historical fiction. It just didn't really work for me. I did not like any of the characters in that novel, but I understand why people like it. I think there's a very strong female protagonist. There's a lot of despair. It's a very depressing book, which oftentimes I enjoy, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work for me. And another 2-star book is Beartown. Again, another darling of a lot of people who review books for a living, and I understand why people like this. The writing in this is very, very, very sharp. I did not enjoy this book because of the multiple perspectives and not having enough time to really, I guess, connect with a singular perspective. I'm not a huge multi-point perspective fan. The book needs to do a lot for me to actually really enjoy a multi-point perspective. And this really didn't. I feel like we didn't spend enough time with each character. We kind of chopped through a narrative. Some of the narrative I enjoyed, some of the plot and some of the character perspectives were good, but then we would switch to a character perspective that I just really didn't care about and was just wondering when we were going to get back to the main thrust of the narrative. So those are 2 2-star books. Hopefully I explained my reasoning on what a 2-star book is. 3-star books, simply a book that I enjoyed for whatever reason. It can have a number of different reasons that lead me to enjoy a book. If it was just a fun popcorn read, if it was an interesting piece of prose, if it was an interesting concept, if the plot did something a little bit different. You know, this is one of the more subjective categories for me. Did I enjoy the book? If yes, 3 stars. If it wasn't elevated past bland enjoyment, then it remains at a 3-star as opposed to going to a 4 or a 5. The distribution of your books, you will have a lot of 3-star books if you are rating things honestly. Unless you have either the hardest standards in the world, then things are going to tend towards 2 and 1 stars, or you have the lowest standards in the world and things are going to tend towards 4 and 5 stars. It's just the law of statistics. It's just a distribution, a bell curve. You will have the majority as 3 stars, and that is fine. Not every book can change your life, and not every book is the worst thing that you've ever read, and that is totally fine. Instead of a couple books, because like I said, this is the majority of what I read, ends up as a 3-star, a series that I think perfectly encapsulates what a 3-star book/series is the Dresden Files. Perfectly enjoyable, fun, fantasy, tropey novels that are not going to set the world on fire, but they are well written. They are well plotted. Some of the character work is really good. They're entertaining. These are 3-star books and a 3-star series. Moving up to 4-star books. These are books that I enjoyed that also have wider or broader themes that I feel like I can absorb into my daily life. This one feels a little bit more nebulous for me because a 4-star book, much like erotic images, I know it when I see it. Now, if you don't get that reference, you gotta do some brushing up on history. It's harder to differentiate between what makes a 3-star and a 4-star book for me personally. A 3-star book, you enjoyed it. And then if it's got a little bit of extra sauce to it, if it's got something that keeps you thinking about it past the day or 2 days that you read it, if you continue to meditate on what you read, oftentimes that will move things through a 4. My process, honestly, is usually to default to a 3. And then if I'm still thinking about it a week, 2 weeks, if I just can't shake the narrative, then it creeps itself up to a 4-star. So this, I think, is where the system kind of falls apart a little bit, but that's on me. That's my own personal kind of biases. I really want to make sure with 4-star books that I actually place them in 4 stars accurately. So I usually will bias towards a 3-star. It's just something that will kind of keep you from being over sensationalized with the things that you read, a little bit of a governor for myself, because I can get caught up in the emotion of something right after I finish reading it, go to Goodreads immediately and be like, easy 4-star. And then I think about it 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, what am I doing? That was a 3-star book. What am I doing? I can't, so The jump from 3 to 4 is probably where this system shakes down a little bit, but it's my system, so I'm sticking to it. 2 4-star books that I think really indicate what I'm going for with what a 4-star book is A Farewell to Arms, the first one by Hemingway. When I first finished this, it went into the 3-star category, but as time crept on, I kept thinking about, loss and existentialism and war and how well written this book is in a way that I don't think modern authors really utilize anymore. If you know anything about Hemingway, you know that his prose is sparse. You are not getting a lot of language. You are getting short, clipped sentences, short, clipped dialogue. And those things elevated this book past the point of being a 3-star for me, and I had to move it to a 4-star. And then I think nothing really signifies what a 4-star book is more so than Game of Thrones, the first book, not the whole series, the first book in A Song of Ice and Fire. This book, you knew as you were reading it that there was something here that I just couldn't attain in a lot of other fantasy books. I knew that this was something special. And that's what I mean by you know it when you see it, or you know it when you are reading it. Give yourself time to meditate on some of these books that you read. Don't just move on to the next thing, because a 3-star can turn into a 4-star. And finally, the grand finale, the 5-star, the book that changes your life in a certain way. And that is a lofty, lofty goal to get to. And that's what it's supposed to be. I started this video saying that not all books can be 5 stars, and I firmly believe that. We have to be honest with ourselves. A 5-star book is really, truly something that shifts your perspective on how you see the world, that changes the way that you interact with people, that changes the way that you interact with yourself. In some way, shape, or form, it has left its mark on you and changes you going forward after you have the experience of reading the novel or the nonfiction text. I think that finding these gems, these 5-star gems, is kind of why I read. I enjoy reading as a pastime, as a way to entertain myself, but I'm always searching for that rare moment where I find a book that absolutely changes the way that I think about the world and my life and my place in the world. So 2 books that I've given 5 stars. I don't think I have many 5 stars, maybe 20 out of all of the books that I've read, but 2 that I think really inform what goes into making the choice to give something 5 stars. First and foremost, Pride and Prejudice. And the reason that this is a 5-star book is because the first time I read it, it was a 2-star book. I read it as a snot-nosed 16-year-old in high school who just wanted to play football and play video games and didn't give a damn about romance novels or anything like that. And I went back to the well in college, and I went back to the well a time after that, I think sometime, during COVID. And then I recently reread this year, and each time it has informed the way that I think about romance, the way that I think about love, the way that I think about interactions with humans. What is love? What is infatuation? What is longing? All of these things that we're trying to figure out as humans, how we interact with our spouses, how we interact with the world around us, how we interact with our parents and our family. There are so many deeper themes on love, connection, that every time I read it, it absolutely opens a new frame of reference for love or connection or relationship. And I just think it's a masterpiece. The writing in it is unmatched. I have yet to find a book with the prose that is just so incredibly concise with this language while also being incredibly flowery and poetic. And it's just fantastic. I don't know what to say. And I understand that it may not feel that way for some people, but for me personally, the impact that it has had on my life firmly puts it as 5 stars. And on the nonfiction side of things, a 5-star book for me is Man's Search for Meaning. Obviously, Viktor Frankl. I've read this book 3 or 4 times. I came to this book in a tough time in my life, coming out of college, taking a gap year before going to graduate school, trying to determine what my life would look like moving forward out into the world of adulthood. And then to have the struggle of humanity during one of the darkest periods in human history in a concentration camp, coming to terms with the fact that the only thing we have real control over is ourselves, is our perspective, is our attitude. And as someone who is genetically kind of predisposed to negativity, this spoke to me in a way where I do have agency and power over the way that I interact with situations, with people throughout the world, throughout my daily life. I just think every person should read this book. I I can't say enough good things about it, and I reread it every 1 or 2 years because I think it is that powerful and that impactful. So these are 5-star books. These are books that you continue to go back to. You continue to glean more important information, or you continue to go back to and just get floored by the entertainment value of these texts. In some way, shape, or form, they have enhanced your life past the point of really description. A quick note on half stars, 3.5, 4.5, whatever. I will use these sparingly, oftentimes as kind of placeholders, like I said, between 3 and 4. If it's a book that I think may creep up to a 4-star, I give it a half. If it's a book that may creep up to a 5-star upon second read, I'll give it a 4.5. Usually I'm not giving a 1 or a 2.5 because those pretty much firmly remain in the categories, that I put in. So half stars, we use them sparingly, but every now and again I'll throw one out. So that's it. That's my ranting on how to rate books. Hopefully this informed a little bit of your decision making in how you are going to go forward and rate your books, because I do think that this process allows you to absorb some of the information that you're reading a little bit easier if you go through this checklist and kind of ask yourself these questions of how would I rate this? Do I understand why other people like these books? Do I understand what this book means to me? Is this book going to change me? Can help you actually absorb what you're reading, which I think is a big problem a lot of people are facing. I know I was reading, blowing through things, not really remembering anything until I started to take the time to actually accurately rate these books. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you have a rating system, please leave it in the comments. I would love to read it. I would love to get a dialogue going about rating books. Hopefully you have listened to this rant and not thought any less of me as a man who shouts at clouds, but sometimes I just get something in my craw and I just got to talk about it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're reading something that is very good. I hope you're reading a potential 5-star book at the moment. I will see you soon when the next video comes out.